And it looks like you're paying off some debt, which is always good.
Not enough.
Yeah, times it by 100.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. Yes, it's a good way to start the day, isn't it? Reducing your debt. So this is the finance report for the year to June. It seems such a long way away now. And this report's slightly bigger because there's a number of quarterly reporting items in here as well. So I'll touch on those as we go through. So the year finished with an operating surplus of just over $4 million, so $4.4 million. Was a bit higher than what we'd been forecasting, and I'll come to that. But the main drivers around what caused that or how that occurred, revenues were up by just over $17 million, and these are the things that I've sort of outlined at previous committee meetings. Higher interest because of the jump in interest rates driven by the OCR movements. Higher rates income, so that's the higher level of growth than we had budgeted for. Higher building consent volumes, rec and sport revenues were up, and subvention receipts were coming through as well, as also the Transwaste dividends. That was offset in part by Three Waters volumes were down, and lower planning and consent revenues were down as well. Expenditure was up by about just over 11, almost $12 million, 11.7. So I guess the contra to the higher revenues received from interest was the higher debt servicing costs that we incurred with the level of debt. Higher costs in digital personnel, higher building consent costs. So again, that's although we had higher revenues, we needed additional resourcing to manage that. Higher Three Water personnel costs as well, as also in Three Waters there was higher operating and maintenance costs. A matter that I brought to the committee's attention a number of times is the level of staff capitalisation that was under by about $1.5 million as well. Offsetting some of those higher costs, we had internal landfill from Burwood landfill revenues went down. Grants and levies with some underspend there, and the insurance claim, there was some costs involved there. So overall, that left us with a $4.4 million surplus after carry forwards. Within the capital space, there was a total capital spend of $621 million. So that was up on budget, which was almost $590 million, so almost $32 million up on budget. But that was mainly driven by the brought forward costs in Te Kaha. That was up $68 million. So overall, the core program was under by $34 million. So that was a significant improvement on the May results. So just sort of touching on, I think we've been jumping around about $1.2, $1.5 million over the previous months, and all of a sudden we're at 4.4. So that is a percentage-wise, that's a decent increase. When you look at the overall spend, though, that's really still whisper thin. It's the right side of that, so that's encouraging. So what led to that? So we had a number of factors were in there. We had better capturing of the staff costs in capital. Some of that had been in operational, so we put it into the capital space, which was the right way. Increased building consent revenues is higher than we thought, as was rates income, and also increase in solid waste revenue. So those matters combining left us in that $4.4 million. So with that, there's a number of carry forwards, and there's some schedules in the report sort of outlining what that's for. So when we're looking at the carry forwards, we just, the requests come through, they're assessed by the finance team to make sure they meet the set criteria. Are they projects in flight? Is it activities that is monies that has been not rates funded, but we might get special funds coming through, like the Three Waters reform, like better off funding, that type of thing coming through, and is there budget to manage that? And in all those cases, those tests have been satisfied, so those amounts are in the schedule attached. So sort of, I guess, just jumping through other parts of the report, we look at Treasury. Overall, there was, I guess, a slight reduction in the amount that we thought we were going to be borrowing. That was partially driven by slightly lower capital spend by, like I say, about $32 million in the core works. Remembering that the increase in the capital works budget was driven by the extra spend into Kaha, which was Crown funding. So we're quite happy to spend the Crown funding, and now we're into spending our own funds or council's funds from now on. So of a core program, there was about $34 million of expenditure that didn't occur, so therefore our level of borrowing was down. But also, we started the year with slightly more cash than we had anticipated, like we're talking about back about 15 months now, so there was a reduction in that over year end as well, so just managing the cash flows. So the other treasury matrices were all in order for the year. We look at rates, so rates debt, the arrears from the previous year is down by about 300,000. So when it was, so this is the quarter, so when it was 1.7, now 1.4, so that's a healthy reduction. So there's still significant work in that place. Overall, debt rates debt is increased a bit, but when you look at the 90 debt that is more than 90 days old compared to as a percentage to the overall rates take, you know, it's an overall decrease on where we are over previous years, going back to January 2017. Slight increase towards the end of the year, but overall it's a decrease, and that's, I guess, like I say, reflective of the work that the team does in that space and encouraging people to contact council and be put on payment plans to ensure that doesn't get out of control. Overall, when we look at the debt, so I'm talking to section 10 now, general debtors, that jumps around quite significantly, and the reason is because of Te Kaha doing the spend and getting the claims back through. That's why that overall it's not a significant move year on year. There were some questions coming through, just with your leave, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to identify or answer those now, and then take questions from the committee. So I'll say, hey, thanks very much for sending the questions in, because gives us a better chance to give a good answer. So appreciate that. There was just one around the comment regarding NZTA subsidies, and that perhaps being a bit lower, and the overall I guess performance within the transport. The wording was would have been better to outline so far as NZTA subsidies goes. That's over a 3-year program, so we estimate what that's going to be very closely, but that didn't, we're slightly under for the year just in review, but we're very confident over a 3-year cycle that will be on target. And there was a mix in funding, so with the surf and the craft programs coming through, we can't claim the admin fee on that, but we were getting higher subsidies than we would be under the NZTA, so it was a better way to go through that too. And just on the comment about the maintenance, where that was slightly down. Now that's I understand that's incorrect. It's more around when we talk about the improvement work and the maintenance work was done out, but the improvement work was consolidated in that as well. So overall, that wasn't occurring. But like I say, the comment around the NZTA subsidies stands. There was a comment on the level of overspend in Three Waters. So that wouldn't have been the amounts finalised now, but that matter had been raised throughout the annual plan deliberations, mainly around maintenance work being done, reactive maintenance work. Revenues were down on budget, so that has been identified and corrected in the budget for the year that we're currently in. Also, the capitalisation of staff time hadn't been as we had budgeted, so we've made adjustments for that too, but those are the things that's driving for that. There was a question around the EV charging the spend and wanting to know where that project was. So that work's been delayed meantime with prioritisation given to the SURF projects, and also a question around the contract collection costs in our bin system. So there's an increase in that contract, and it's done on a quarterly basis to align with inflation. So that's the reason that has jumped up. There's also a question on the Pawa Children's Library demolition. So the head of community and support and partnerships will come back on that one. So yeah, quite a bit in that. So I didn't want to let you hear all of my voice. So I'm happy to take any questions.
No, thank you, Russell. And I think, your presentations are great because anyone watching will be able to understand as well the movements that have occurred in terms of the finances for council. So you don't think that you're taking up too much time, because I certainly find them very valuable. I'm sure others do as well.
Thank you.
Have we got Pauline first? Yep.
Quick one on the building consents. You say that they're increasing, but I thought that they were actually coming down. It's just catching up, is it? Still?
Yes, there was. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there was a level of backlog in that space, so where the money's coming through. But yeah, that's why the costs are up as well. We've had to. There was a reduction. I guess we had to, not penalties, but we had to refund some funds, but we had to get additional resourcing in to get that work as well. So yeah,
if there's a downturn occurring in the market, we've got a lag before we will feel that.
A small lag, yeah. We're working hard. I'm not sure where we are in the backlog, but I wouldn't say we're up to date, but we're making good progress towards being that. But yeah, that's right. It is future focused, that comment.
Yep, thanks.
Right, thanks, Pauline. Kelly.
Thanks for that. Just regarding the higher rec and sport revenues, and I see you specifically mentioned Hipuna Taimawana. Can you give us a little more information about that? Has it been particularly successful versus other pools in the city in terms of revenue?
Might be a Mary question, is it?
It's been particularly successful over and above what was forecasted for that for the revenue. So it's been adjusted this year to actually reflect the higher revenue. So the budget's been adjusted. It's been much more successful than the business case anticipated and that we anticipated when we opened. So it has been. It's hard to compare it against other pools because they're a very different service.
Yeah. Oh well, that's great to hear. I mean, it's really exciting to see it actually, because obviously it was a big thing for the East. But yeah, really pleased to see that. So thanks.
Yanni, thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just trying to get my head around the Pawa Children's Library. Thanks for the response. We've currently got budgeted $100,000 for its demolition and associated costs. I've been told that we're only going to allocate 40 to any group that wants to look at removing it and relocating it.
I think John.
So I'm just trying to kind of
might have an answer.
Get my head around. That basically.
Have a cheer, John.
Thank you, Russell. Through you, Mr. Chair, the some $40,000 is a contractor's estimate for the demolition of the facility in order to encourage any member of the community who wishes to pick up and make use of the building. Rather than us demolishing it, we've offered to contribute that $40,000 towards their costs of relocation. I think councillors referring to the request for a $100,000 carry forward under the Opawa Public Library, Children's Library line item. That $100,000 cost also relates to other aspects of the project, such as project management fees, consent, land remediation. The balance of that sum, and I've talked with the head of Vertical Capital, will be immediately applied to other facilities within the programme, also subject to carry forwards as a bit of an overs and unders, including but not limited to the Yaldhurst Memorial Hall, the Rickerton Wall Memorial Library, facilities that councillors are no doubt familiar with.
Great. So what I'm trying to understand, like if a group's really keen and they get the costings and it comes more than 40 grand, and community can generally do these things cheaper than we can sometimes as a council, or they can get external sponsorship. But if it is more than 40 grand, what's the ability for that group to apply for the the excess to help relocate the building.
Well, unless I misheard you, John, what I understood was that there's $100,000 on budget, of which there's a $40,000 provision to move it, the rest of which is remediation to the land and the other regulatory requirements. So it's probably not a question for this report, Yanni, but if you put it through OCE.
Well, I have.
Well, great. Well, they'll give you a response. Yep.
But the response was there's only 40 grand.
Okay.
But there's more than 40 grand.
Yanni, it's been asked and answered. You can put it through again if you like, or I'm sure John will talk to you offline. Darren.
It's on the same subject.
Okay, well, I don't want to relitigate that. We've had a very clear answer on this. So if there are proposals for the library, they can be dealt with not in the financial report. So probably keen to do other topics.
The question I had was around that EV charging. Thanks for that. We got the memo and appreciate that that's been deferred. But one of the responses we've got is that Parakarori is not future-proofing EV charging. So I just wondered if there's an ability to take some of that budget or look at what we could do. It does seem kind of crazy not to future-proof Parakarori to have EV charging. Like the response from staff was that future-proofing work at Parakarori has not progressed, and council is expecting a briefing from Rao Painga in late August. Is there any way that we could tag some funding, given that some of the surf projects may not go ahead now?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. I can't answer that. Sorry, I'll have to come back to you, whether that's a possibility.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's better to wait for the information and the briefing after
I don't want to debate it. Russell's had a good answer, which is they'll take it offline. Yep.
The question is, once we carry it forward, can we bring it back if we need to?
Bring it back to where?
To the work.
Yeah, we can't bring it back because we're past the bring back period. Yeah. So Aaron had a different question on Opawa. So sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was around if we don't find a community group that want to take the hall, would we consider selling the hall for $1 to a private owner and still applying the $40,000?
We're actually giving them $40,000.
So stop. It's Aaron's asked a question. He's entitled to ask a question. I don't need everyone else chipping in on it. So
I think it's from the table. It's already part of it, so that's all right, Sam.
Great, perfect, easy. Any other questions on this? Phil's happy to move it. Melanie looks like she's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Russell,
Thank
for the
you.
effort that the team put into that. Okay, Andrew.